Welcome to our initial 15-hour client attraction clinic that's hosted by HomeBoss. Now, these are a series of free weekly clinics for serious real estate agents who want to build a predictable pipeline to focusing 15 hours of their work to generate clients without cold calling or door knocking. Now, in the first clinic, we're going to get started by talking about the one-word secret to success in real estate. Kind of sounds like clickbait, right? But it's actually not. Because here's the thing, if you get that wrong, nothing else matters. Now, quick intro. My name is Bob Mangold. I'm the founder and CEO of the HomeBoss Group. In 2025, we had 4,834 closings and just short of $3 billion in production. Our per agent production, which is a pretty important concept or factor to me, is higher than all but two brokerages in North America. So we know these systems work. Now, it sounds crazy to think that your success in real estate comes down to one word, but it actually does. The word is competition. So when I say that to you, what's the first thing you think of? Put it in the chat box for me. When I say, hey, you've got to learn to be more competitive, what does that bring to mind for you? Now, I do want you to use the chat box for this. One of the reasons that I want to do this, folks, is if I get too many questions, I'm dedicated to keeping these down to 30 minutes. So if we get a lot of questions, I may take the last sequence or the last clinic of the month to answer a lot of the questions that I didn't have time to in these different clinics, because I'm pretty dedicated on keeping these to 30 minutes tops. So in my opinion, there's different levels of competition. There's different factors that you have to bring into play that you've got to overcome. So we're going to start by breaking them down individually. And then when you're done, you can build an entire business model around those concepts. Quite simply, your ability to compete is going to dictate your success. Now, in my opinion, the number one level of figuring out your competition is that you are your competition. You're your number one source of competition. Here's what I mean by that. How many of you guys remember the Dunkin' Donuts commercials from the early 80s? I didn't realize they were from the early 80s. I actually looked it up. Where they had the guy laying in bed and the little devil guy pops up and says, no, stay in bed. You get to sleep. You deserve it. And the other one says, no, you got to get up and make the donuts. People are counting on you. Folks, we all have that conversation with ourselves every day, right? Not one of us on this call, not anybody ever watching this video, from the most successful to the least successful person, does not have that conversation every day. Your ability to dictate that is going to decide your future, right? Because the question for you is going to be, what competition between the good habits and the easy way are going to happen for you every day? So the question that you're going to have to determine is, you're going to have to fight this every single day if you want to build what you want to build. And if you can't overcome that, the game's already over. Just stick with a 9-to-5 job, because real estate is a business, right? You're going to have to decide if you want to run a real estate job, a real estate business, or you just want to catch any deals that fall through the cracks for you somehow. Lots of agents do any of those three options. What we teach is, and that's why we say this is for serious agents, we're looking for agents who want to take and build a business, right? So that decision is going to have to happen for you every day when you wake up and you don't feel like doing the things that you need to do, or some of it is monotonous, or whatever that is. Your ability to do the things you don't want to do will dictate your success. Here's some thoughts for you to consider. Are you going to be strategic? Or are you just going to run by the seat of your pants? Are you going to create a real estate business or a job? What's the difference? A real estate job is you wake up every morning and you have no idea what you're going to do. A real estate business is waking up every day knowing exactly what you'll do so that you don't have to wake up and go, what am I going to do today? If shown how to do it, will you devote the time to planning this out? That's the purpose of these clinics, folks. We're going to show you how to do it. And will you do what it takes to do that? Will you take the time to plan this out? Or will you just figure it out as you go along, right? Will you time block to control your time? Especially if we give it to you. Like, we can have AI create an AI prompt that will tell you what to do every day, what you told it you want to get done every day. Will you develop and refine the skills to successfully have the conversion conversations is what we refer to them? Or will you just shoot from the hip saying, yeah, hey, I'm just good at BSing with people. It's just, yeah, I'm good at this. Because it's not about sitting down and being good and BSing with people. It's, do you have the ability to have a conversation that will convert them into a client? And one of the ways that you do that is to figure out your competitive advantage. Why you, right? Will you spend your time on listings or buyers? That's competition for your time, and time is money in our business. So you have to decide that, right? One of the things that you have to compete for is your time. Somebody's always competing for your time, right? There's a gazillion different webinars. There's family things. There's client things that are competing for your time. Where will you spend that time? Are you going to do the high value tasks, or you're just going to be your own assistant? Now, how much will you value your time? How much will you value your skills? But figuring out how to compete in the marketplace, the first obstacle to overcome in competition is you, in my opinion. The second level of competition is to the consumer. This is pretty simple in my opinion. Why should they hire you instead of another agent or another option, right? We have all kinds of options. They have friends and relatives. There's cash offers. There's companies that'll rebate them money. Why you instead of them? Now, I don't expect you to have an answer today, but that's next week's class, is having that conversation about why people hire you. If you can make your offer so compelling that they have no other choice but hiring you, whether it's to buy or sell or invest, can we agree you would make more money? And then if you have such a compelling offer, can't you build your branding and your marketing around that? Because if you're smart, here's what you do. You create marketing and conversations and scripting that gets people to ask you the question that you want answered. So for example, if we're doing an open house and we handed somebody a flyer, and my goal is with that flyer is to get them to say, wow, that's cool. How do I do that? Now I know I have to answer the question that I gave, or I have to give them the answer to the question that I told them to ask me. Do you see how much easier it would be to convert when you do that? But you have to figure out how you have to compete for that consumer now, right? Because listen, guys, there's all kinds of stuff out there now. I just seen another one where it was some AI real estate company in Florida. And this guy, oh, and I saved all the real estate commission or whatever. I actually looked up this guy's property. I can go into tax records and see different transactions and whatever. And he literally sold his house for about 8% less than what he would have if he would have sold it at market value. But it's an option. So you have to figure out what that's going to look like to the consumer. The next level of competition is, well, from the market. Every one of you on this call, don't care where you're at, doesn't matter if I know your market or I don't, you have cash buyers, you have discount companies, right? When I say competition from the market, aren't we competing right now with interest rates? Interest rate is holding people back from selling and buying. That's competition, isn't it? Now you may say, hey, I can't do anything about interest rates. And my answer is, you're wrong. Yes, you can. You have options. You just have to figure those out. We have builders out there that figured it out. They're buying the interest rates down. I just had a friend of mine who closed on a house at 5.25%, 30-year fixed rate loan. The builder just bought the rate down. Could you do the same thing if it wasn't a builder? On your listing, is that a conversation you could have with your listing? The answer is yes, it is. And so consequently, when you can figure out how to deal with all these things, you can build a market around it, right? So, well, cash home buyers. That's pretty easy. We can get cash buyers. And then why don't we market to them and meet the client where they're at? We know 99% of the time they're not going to accept a cash offer, but if I could get them to raise my hand, now I'm competing in that, ain't I? And so it's sitting down and thinking through these things. The next level of competition is competition from other agents. What are they doing? What do they do better? Right? Some agents do some things better. If you're a new agent on here and you're on a listing appointment against a 20-year pro, how are you going to compete? What are you going to say? What do you offer? Now, I don't want you to worry about that because as we go through these clinics, I'm going to cover those topics so that I could teach a brand new agent, I don't care if they got licensed yesterday, to go into a listing presentation and win against a 20-year agent. Now, I'm going to show you how we've made our agents virtually impossible to compete against for listings. Then at least it gives you a guideline or a framework of what you might possibly be able to do. Now you have the next level is competition from lead portals. These lead portals have what you want, right? They have leads. So you're competing with them to get leads. They already have the traffic. You have to figure out where you're going to find yours. Now, in my opinion, it crushes me every day to see this. So many agents are relying on these pay-at-closing leads where they're giving up 40 and 50% of their commissions. And a lot of times they're working on teams and they give up like another 25% on top of that to the team leader. So they're walking away selling a $500,000 house and they got like a $2,000 commission. I just think that's horrible if you can take and build your own systems to attract clients. But you have to figure out how to compete with that. And then the last one is creating competition for sellers. The way that you can take and become the dominant agent for listings is if you have a serious plan about how you create competition for their listing. There is no secret in the consumer's mind anymore. They can go back to 21 and 22 and remember what that was like, and everybody was like offering the craziest offers forever. That was simply competition. When you're in a listing presentation, all you have to do to a seller is show them how you'll create more competition for their listing than other agents can. It's that simple. Right? So if we look at this whole private listings things that's going on now with like Compass, and now that they bought Anywhere, just so you guys know, they own about 26% of the listing market as we sit here right now. You will never convince me that is good for the seller. And at some point in time, the data will dictate what the reality was. You'll find that these homes sell for less money. Now, I understand why they're doing it. It's an agent attraction opportunity for them. Saying to their agents, hey, you can put them on there, and they have to call you, the buyer has to call you for the listing. And that's cool. And then you can go in there and convince them that's a good idea to do. But when they don't get the right price for their home, right, and I forget what the number is now, the number that end up going into the MLS or whatever, it's a very high number. But now you've wasted 30 days of your market time. Are you going to get the highest price? And let's be honest, with all the lawyers nibbling around the real estate space, how long before they go, hey, if you sold your house in a private listing network and you were convinced to do that and didn't get all the money for your home, call my office. What do you think is going to happen to that, folks? Compass is a big company. They got really good lawyers for that. But what's it going to do to the agent? Now, that's my opinion. Robert Refkin doesn't care what my opinion is. But at the end of the day, the way that you create competition for your sellers is how you're going to dictate how many listings you take. Personally, if I would go in a listing presentation against a Compass or Anywhere or any of those agents now, I would blow them away explaining how competition is what's going to dictate the price of your home. And let me show you these 5 things that I'm going to do that nobody else can do in this market to create competition for your sellers. And if I have a plan built around that, then I'm going to take as many listings as I need to take. Does that make sense? So let me recap them for you, because one of the things I'm going to do is I want to give you homework at the end of each one of these sessions. So here's what I want to do. I want to review this with you, is really sit down. The first piece of competition is to figure out how you're going to compete with yourself, with that good voice and the bad voice. And we all have them. It's not a negative. It's what we have. What are you going to do to overcome that? So that's your first level of competition. Figure out yourself. Answer all those questions. Are you going to be strategic? Are you going to run by the seat of your pants? Are you going to create a real estate business or a real estate job? Totally up to you. Will you wake up every day knowing exactly what you're going to do, or just figure it out each morning? Now, shown how to do it, will you devote the time to planning it out? Or are you just going to figure it out as you go along? Will you develop and refine your skills to successfully have conversion conversations? Or are you just going to shoot from the hip because, well, you're just so good at BSing people? Will you spend your time on sellers or buyers? Competition for your time. Will you start doing the high value tasks, or will you be your own assistant and do the low value tasks? How are you going to create competition from the consumers, right? Why they hire you instead of their other options. Number 3, competition from the market, the cash home buyers, the builders, the discount companies, interest rates. Level 4, competition from other agents. What do they do? How do they do it? What do they do better? Who's the number 1 agent in your market? Guess what, guys? It used to take hours and hours to research that stuff. With AI now, it takes minutes. And then competition from lead portals. What is it that they're doing that you could do on your own and keep the 40 or 50% override? And then not have to join a team and pay another 25% on top of that. And then finally, creating competition for your sellers. So here's the homework that I want you to do. Write a short list of each of those commitments that you're going to make to yourself about your business. About your business. What are you willing to do to double or triple your businesses here? And then some ideas on how to compete in those other areas that we outlined. Now, don't worry, if you look at the agenda of the clinics, you'll see we're going to go through a lot of these so that we can give you the material that you can use as a framework to build it. And then if anything that you heard today helps you see the problem more clearly, then I have a simple next step for you. Get the free guide that I created, the 15-hour client attraction method, that breaks all this down. Just go to www.the15hourmethod.com and you can download the ebook and you'll be able to see the content that we're going to cover in these next sets of clinics, right? Because it's going to help you build a more predictable pipeline with better positioning, better follow-up, and a better use of your time. So I hope that helps and look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. And I have some time for questions because I do want to be cognizant of keeping us on track. Any questions that you guys have that I can answer? And read that ebook, folks. It'll break all this down for you and then give you solutions for those opportunities in our business. I don't want to call them problems. They're simply opportunities, folks. It's growth. I was talking with one of our agents yesterday, and he was telling me about a guy in, I think it was Orange County, California. He came into the business and said, hey, I'm going to take 30 to 40 listings, and I'm going to get really good at those so that I have the skills to do that, and then I'm going to go and move into the luxury market. See, there was a person willing to invest in their training, in their skills, and willing to go into a listing appointment and mess it up, figure out what he did, and then make adjustments to it. We all have to do that, guys. I have so many agents saying, I want to just role play till I'm perfect. You're never going to be perfect, and you're never going to be able to figure out exactly what somebody's going to say to you in a listing presentation. The only way to do that is to go on more of them and take your lumps, and then make notes about what you could do better. And anybody who knows me, you'll know that I preach focusing on listings. I have nothing against buyers. It's competition for our time. I can take and close 4 or 5 listings for every buyer that I can close. It's just math. So don't take it as a negative that I'm trying to hurt a buyer. I don't like buyers. I do. But in competition for your time, it's about listings. You need to become good at those skills. I don't believe anybody can go in and just BS their way through, and they can have charisma and empathy and everything else. But at the end of the day, the seller really's got 3 questions. How much are you going to get me? Is that the best price that you can get? How fast can I do it? And what are you going to do? Because the process is terrible, right? This survey is about probably coming up on 3 years old from CoreLogic now. 78% of home sellers said they were willing to accept 5 to 10% less in equity to avoid the traditional hassles and headaches of a traditional listing. Folks, what that told me 3 years ago, the consumer is screaming at us that they want a better way for us to handle listings. For me, when I see that, I look at that as a challenge and say, here, I have a solution for that. When you have solutions for things that people want, that's how you're going to be successful. And that's part of that sitting down right now. The reason I start this with competition and talking about figuring that out, I know everybody wants to hear about the client attraction things first. Hey, what are we going to do to attract those? The first thing we're going to do is figure out how you're going to compete with all this. And then we can take and craft a message. So next week's clinic is going to be answering that question. Why you instead of somebody else? Or at least all these other options that they have. It's that simple. So at the end of the day, it's sitting down first and figuring that out. So I always ask this question: what's more important to you? The number of leads you have or the number of closings that those leads produce? Yeah, nothing else matters. I have agents, I got a 25,000 person database. Great. How many closings came from that? How many referrals came from that? None that I know of. My gosh, that means you're spending a lot of money and time and effort to work that database to get no results. What's the solution to that? That's why these calls are not going to be PowerPoint presentations. These are conversations I want to have with real agents to be able to help them out. So we'll see you next Tuesday. Have an amazing day. Thanks for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.